Hello and welcome back to this episode of the Engage It podcast. I am Josh with my co-host Mike. Today we have a full recap of week 3 of the NFL season. We're going to start with Thursday night's game between the Jets and the Pats and go all the way through up until Sunday Night Football, and then we will recap those final 3 games of the week on our episode on Wednesday. We will, at the end of this episode, go over some of our studs and duds as well for the week in the games that we have already seen, but we will start off with the Jets beating the Patriots 24-3 on Thursday Night Football. I said earlier on in the week in our preview this needed to be a statement game from the Jets. They did a fairly good job of doing that. Their defense just completely shut down New England. They held New England to just 139 yards total in this one. Jacoby Brissett goes under 100. Jets really just shot themselves in the foot penalty-wise, though. 8 penalties for 106 total yards. Really stopped them from being able to blow this game wide open. They do win by 3 touchdowns, but those penalties definitely cost them. They weren't able to run the ball well still, again, which is something that I'm very much worried about this Jets team and a lot of other teams we'll talk about later. But they still dominated time of possession. They have 40 minutes to 20 minutes over the Pats. Rodgers looked a lot more comfortable in this one. This stretch of easy games that they're in right now is really just key for Rodgers and this offense to get comfortable. They're looking more and more comfortable every week, and I'm liking what I'm seeing from the Jets. From the Pats perspective, Drake May comes in late in this game, 4 for 8, 22 yards, got sacked twice late. Patriots O-line really just cost them in this one. You see Jacoby Brissett get sacked 5 times in his playing time, but Drake May, he didn't look horrible. He looked like he had wheels to an extent, which is something that was kind of underrated about his game. I'm excited to see if this season kind of gets away from the Pats, if they're like, you know what, let's just roll him out and see what he's got. They were not hesitant to do it, and we see him already here in week 3.
Yeah, he looked okay in his 8 pass attempts, did finish 50% passing. Jacoby Brissett struggles, like you said, under 100 yards. They also could not get the run game going that had been their go-to thing so far in the season, their go-to offensive uh, way to move the ball. Only 78 rushing yards in this game. Demario Douglas led them in pass attempts, but really the Jets defense just dominated this game from the beginning to the end. Offensively, Aaron Rodgers was very solid. Looked like kind of the Aaron Rodgers of old. He wasn't too mobile, but he did move around the pocket a little bit more. He seems to be getting more comfortable at 280 passing yards. No interceptions. That was good. Their running backs, very good out there. They each finished with more than 50 yards. It seems to be kind of a running back by committee. Breece Hall will get more touches, but we're going to see a lot of Braylon Allen, and I think that's very good to keep Breece Hall fresh, kind of prevent injuries. Tyler Conklin was the main target for Aaron Rodgers, the tight end. He was good, and Lazard as well. Continues to shine. Garrett Wilson didn't see too much of him. He does get a touchdown late in the game, but the Jets offensively and defensively just outmatched the Patriots 17-4 in first downs, 252-40, I think, in the first half in total yards. Their defense, it looked like the defense we were expecting to see at the start of the year. And offensively, they should be able to beat a team like this 24-3. I thought the Patriots would hang in there because they've been a scrappy team all season. I'm 0-3 betting on the Patriots so far, so I might just wish I could give that one up.
Yeah, or against him.
Yeah.
But as we move here into the Sunday games, this week in general is just has been a very confusing week so far. I think there's a few games that I'm going to call, and I'll highlight them as they come up. I'm going to call them the blurring lines games. I know going into this week, we had groups of teams, whether we said it out loud or just subconsciously, that we think this group of 5 to 10 teams are good teams. This group of 5 to 10 teams are bad teams. And then you have those middle teams that we don't really know about yet. And there were multiple times this week where teams in that group of 5 to 10 that we thought were good get killed or just lose to a team that we thought was for sure bad, which really just completely blurs our lines completely on the week. And we're going to start here with one of those games, the Broncos beating the Buccaneers 26-7 in Tampa. This game just doesn't make any fucking sense to me at all. Bucs just kind of forgot how to pass the ball all of a sudden as Mahomes throws a pick in the end zone or a
Justin
touchback.
Simmons, man, that
I
Falcons
know.
secondary, man.
We're recording this as always, during Sunday Night Football. We will recap this game on Wednesday's episode. But Justin Simmons, former member of this Broncos secondary, and the Broncos secondary looked good today. They were very impressive as a unit. The Bucs are a team that has been dominant through the air this entire season so far through the first 2 games. Baker goes out there, throws 163, a touchdown and a pick. He also gets sacked 7 times in this one. The Bucs O-line was nowhere to be seen. How could we have predicted the Broncos secondary to be locked down and their pass rush to all of a sudden be great? There was just no way to predict that. The Bucs actually ran the ball decently, but it just wasn't close to enough of what they needed to win this game. They got down early in this one, then just never really had a chance. No Vita Vea for the Bucs. That was a semi late scratch. Hurt them pretty bad as Denver was able to rush all over them for most of this game. You'd like to see more from guys like Javante and Jaleel McLaughlin, but Bo Nix was out on the ground. Tyler Batty was good on the ground as well. So, um, I don't know what to do with this game. Maybe you just throw it out. I was sitting here singing the praises of Todd Bowles in the preview, and there's no way they could lose this game, and they happen to lose this game. But here's the next 7 games for the Bucs: Eagles, at Falcons, at Saints, Ravens, Falcons, at Chiefs, 49ers. That is a brutal next 7 for the Bucs. We're really going to find out what this team is there, and I think they're going to probably come out of there at best 4-3, or maybe at best 5-2, but that's a really tough stretch. And going into that stretch, this was a game you just couldn't lose. It's a pretty embarrassing loss here for the Bucs.
This is a game they needed. Baker Mayfield sacked 7 times. You just can't have that. Touchdown and a pick offensively. Bucks just couldn't get it going. Like you said, they got down early. Really no Mike Evans in this game. He only had 2 catches. Chris Godwin has a touchdown, so he was on the sheet, but that was also later in the game. It's just really disappointing from the Bucks. I mean, you said it. This is a team that we thought was pretty solid, and the Broncos we thought were terrible. And Bo Nix goes out there, has no turnovers, just as efficient with the ball, has a rushing touchdown. So good for him getting his. He still hasn't had a passing touchdown. Um, their Denver rushing offense is just so strange. We thought it was going to be Jaleel McLaughlin. He had a very nice touchdown where he was able to get around the defenders, but Tyler Body had even 9 carries. He was their leading rusher, 70 yards. Just really couldn't expect this one at all. Bo Nix was out. They had a 70-yard drive to start out the game. Um, just really disappointing if you're the Bucks. You needed a big game like this, and this is just a down performance of the game. I don't know if they just overlooked them or what, but they need to get back. And like you said, they have a rough stretch coming, so they got to figure that out quickly because you cannot have this one come out flat. Bad
Yeah, embarrassing. But moving on here to
at
the
home as well.
yeah, and at home. Colts beating the Bears 21-16. Neither of the young QBs were really great in this one, despite Caleb's 363-yard total at the end. A little bit of a stat pad situation there, but Bears had absolutely no run game in this one. Swift looked horrible, which you hate to see. He didn't even really look, in my opinion, he didn't look horrible in Philly. I know some people said he did. I know he didn't look horrible in Detroit. So I don't know what's kind of happened in this situation. I think it's mainly first time in his career he's played with a bad O line. The Lions O line was great for him. The Eagles O line was great for him. He's playing with a bad O line. He hasn't been able to do much with it so far. Roshan Johnson comes in and goes 8 for 30, and Bears fans were like, he's so much better. Like Swift goes 13 for 20. That's horrible, but 8 for 30 isn't anything crazy either for Roshan Johnson. Caleb Williams was better today, but he looked bad in the first 3 quarters of this one. They go and they put up 13 points in the fourth quarter. He gets his first 2 passing touchdowns of his career, but he had a horrible stat line going into that quarter. No touchdowns, 2 picks, was overthrowing guys left and right. He had 3 turnovers in this one too. For Anthony Richardson, just another wacky game. He needs to be better. He goes 10 for 20, 15% again, 50% again, not 15, but JT was great for the Colts. Leaning on him was super effective. That's a big reason why they were able to get this win. He was phenomenal. They need to continue to do that. And like you said, put less pressure on Anthony Richardson. But he's continuing to put up 50% passing games. I'm trying to think, what were his first 2? So this one was 10 for 20. 10 for 20, 17 for 34, and 9 for 19. He's almost been exactly 50% in every game. But
Yeah.
those numbers have to go up. There's just no way around it. He's a crazy athlete. He's super talented. He has a strong arm, and all that is great and all. But those numbers have to go up. It's hard to win games in this league if you're 50% completion. Bears though are very very close to being 0-3. They need to find some rhythm on offense. They are a miracle comeback against the 0-3 Titans away from being 0-3 to start the year. Caleb Williams, he's going to get some praise for a 360-yard game. And I will say at points late in the game, he did look good and he was hitting his throws. But for 3 quarters, no matter what the stat sheet says, for 3 quarters, you cannot convince me he was a good quarterback. Good for him to turn it on in the fourth, gave his team a chance, but you shoot yourself in the foot for the first 3 quarters. It's tough to come back. And I'm not impressed from what I've seen the first 3 games of his career so far.
I'm not impressed either. This is a game where he should have come out and been able to pass pretty well against a very poor defense. who they're missing their best player in DeForest Buckner up the middle. He didn't have any help really from his run game at all. The run game for the Bears was absolutely atrocious, especially going against the worst run defense in the NFL. I don't know if the Colts run defense kind of figured it out. EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin were a lot better today than they've been all season. This was by far their best game. They look great, but still, I don't know if that's going to be a long-term thing where they're going to be able to stop the run every game. Bears offensive line was rough. Matt Pryor, former Colt, guy that everyone hated, he's starting for the Bears. He had a poor game all around. That offensive line for the Bears just not great. Caleb Williams,
Horrible.
though, Caleb Williams still has to be better. And even Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator calling plays, you have to be better overall. 52 pass attempts. I don't think that's the path for a rookie quarterback. We've talked about that with Bo Nix having to do that. I don't think that's smart overall, but um, I don't know. I guess when your run game is that bad, you're going to have to. Rome Odunze was phenomenal today. 6 catches, 112 yards, and a touchdown. He was the Bears' main threat. Him and Caleb Williams seemed to kind of get their connection going. And just as important, Cole Kmet, 10 catches, 97 yards, and a touchdown. So two guys for the Bears offense. That's great. They had their three kind of main pass catchers there, and Moore, Kmet, and Odunze in this one all have a solid game against a Colts secondary that's bad, but the Bears still were unable to put up points. Jalen Jones was phenomenal for the Colts defense. He has 2 interceptions, great ones as well. Nice for the Colts to have a guy in the secondary step up and make plays. I haven't seen that in a while. And then the secondary that's very thin and young and not very good. They were able to stop a Bears offense that I thought would be able to pass on them. But for the Colts offense, Anthony Richardson was not good today. Overall, he just seemed uncomfortable. It's something that we didn't see in his rookie season. He seemed calm in his rookie season. He knew what he was doing. We haven't seen that as much this season, Texans game, but these last 2 weeks he hasn't looked comfortable. He hasn't been using his legs as much. I know he says he has 8 carries for 24 yards, which is nice, but I would love to see more runs from him. Design runs are just runs to get him out of the pocket and scramble a little bit. But getting the ball to Jonathan Taylor was the main thing, and they did that. He had 23 carries. He was phenomenal. 2 touchdowns was the reason the Colts won this game. They tried to lose it in multiple times. Their defense finally gave a touchdown late. That makes sense. But in the kickoff, there's 2 minutes and 1 second left, and you decide to fair catch it instead of trying to return it. And you're probably going to get to the 30 with the new kickoff rules, anyways, or even if you don't, you get to the 25. But at least use that 2 minute warning so the Bears really have no chance to get the ball back. But luckily, Jonathan Taylor bails him out and gets the first down on a nice stretch run. But hopefully, this Colts team and Anthony Richardson can just continue to get better throughout the season. There's been Colts fans and just people in the NFL saying they have to put in Joe Flacco. The best possible thing you could do. I guess you see Andy Dalton go out, and we'll talk about that in a little bit and have a good game. But you put in Joe Flacco, and maybe you win a game or two more. Even if you do, I don't think that's a guarantee. But you do that, and you just slow down your rookie quarterback's development. Your ceiling is maybe making the playoffs with an old quarterback that you're not going to return. That's just an idiotic thing. There's a 0% chance they do that. You have to continue to let Anthony Richardson develop. He's the youngest quarterback in the NFL. He just needs time. We see Caleb Williams struggling as well. He's the second youngest quarterback. These young quarterbacks, they need to develop. They just need to see these defenses that are very hard to see. It's way different than college. Um, but yeah, good win for the Colts. You needed to do that to not go 0-3, and for the Bears, I can just say that I thought keeping Matt Eberflus was a bad choice in the offseason, and through 3 weeks, that looks like it was a terrible choice. And King Poles keeps getting all this praise for everything he's done to make this roster. They're 1-2. Their offensive line sucks, which is what Ryan Poles is supposed to be good at,
Mm-hmm.
is finding offensive line talent. He doesn't have the balls to fire his coaching staff from last season, and look at him now in this
They're already
position.
talking Ben Johnson again. It's that time of year
Yeah,
already. It's
week
crazy,
4.
bro.
They could have done that in the offseason and given their rookie quarterback a chance to have stay in one offense for hopefully his
And
most of
I
his career.
guarantee you Ben Johnson takes that job. I guarantee you he takes that job.
I bet he would.
I mean, the Bears are a tough team to ever want to be the coach of, but it looked on paper like a great situation going in. As far as Anthony Richardson, the solution is obviously not to bench him. That is
Yeah,
never the solution. The Carolina, although they won today, and we'll speak about them, I still don't think that's a good decision to bench him.
maybe it's a 1 or 2
Him.
week solution, but that's not a long-term solution at all.
If you have a quarterback you just drafted and you've only played for 6 games, if you're
Mhm.
more worried about let's make the playoffs this year, then you got your priorities in the wrong spot.
I
The
completely
the
agree.
solution here is let's just have him have a game where he gives the ball to JT a million times and he only throws short routes. Let's have him have a game where he can get 65% completion and feel good about himself rather than I get he has all the tools in the world and you want to use the tools, but let him get comfortable and make completions before you have him trying to throw the ball down 45, 50 yards down the field when he can do that. But let's let him get comfortable first. Let's let him run some read options. Last year, I know maybe my memory's foggy of those first few games, but I don't remember them trying to air it out as much
No,
with Richardson in those first few games. And now they come out and they're like, all right, we have this guy who could throw it a million yards. Let's just see how many big completions he had. And that was cool in week one, but that's just not sustainable, especially with, like you
no.
said, the youngest quarterback in football. It just doesn't make sense.
I completely agreed. Last season they didn't throw the ball that deep that often. I think he floated around like 60% completion, if my memory serves itself
Which that's
correct last
fine.
season. Which yeah, that's I'll take that. Right now they are trying to move the ball deep and quick, but it's also causing them to get three and outs that you just can't have. You're losing the yard or the total plays by a lot. Time of possession. You need to keep your defense fresh, and that's really not happening. But it's a long season. There's a lot of time left for things to change.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll figure it out. I trust Steichen as a coach. But moving on here to another one of those blurring line games, number two here with the Giants beating the Browns 21-15. Just a shocking result here in Cleveland. Daniel Jones looked really, really good. He looked so good.
It doesn't
He,
even make sense.
when I wasn't watching this game, it wasn't on one of my main screens. I was only getting the updates from Red Zone. I was like, damn, the Giants are playing good. And then I see it go across my main screen that Daniel Jones is like 17 for 19, 200 yards, two touchdowns in the first half. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here, man. The Browns defense
Yeah.
couldn't stop Daniel Jones. Deshaun wasn't even horrible in this game either. He gets sacked 8 times, fumbles twice in this one. He wasn't great, but he wasn't horrible. Like he looked better than Daniel Jones looked the first 2 weeks. Giants defense just really came to play here. They showed flashes in their first 2 games against Washington and against even Minnesota at times, even though Minnesota put up like 28 in that game. That was mainly on the Giants offense. Their defense has had flashes here and there, and they really came to play in this one. They look solid. Malik Neighbors, great once again for the Giants. Uh, LSU receivers just continue to be dominant in the NFL, and he's going to be really, really good. I mean, maybe Daniel Jones will end up being the guy. I don't know. I mean, he looked good today.
Yeah.
I doubt that's going to be the situation, but I hope he gets a because I want to say I hope he gets a great quarterback so we can see his full potential. But I mean, well, I don't know what to believe anymore, man. I just don't. The Browns just lack of run game without Nick Chubb is just hurting them so bad. It's making it really tough for Deshaun. Yeah, he was a great quarterback 4 years ago. He doesn't need to be throwing the ball 40 times right now. Like that's just not really the recipe for success with him. But if you have no run game, you really have no choice. The O line was a strength for the Browns, but they just have not been good at all early on. I haven't been able to completely go back and watch like the sack tape of this one. I assume not all 8 sacks were on the O line, but if you have 8 sacks, unless you're Daniel Jones week one, it's probably not Deshaun's fault, and they can't run the ball, so that's a problem. So yeah, it's really tough for a team when one of your biggest strengths going into the year ends up being a weakness really quick. It's really hard to adjust to that, and the Browns are dealing with that right now. Um, it's just the offense sucking isn't surprising to me. Their defense getting torched by Daniel Jones in the first half is, and this is a game that really just has me not knowing what to believe and not knowing what to think of the Browns, and maybe a little bit scaring me for my Jags pick tomorrow. But
Yeah, I have no idea what happened in this game. I have no idea. The Browns did lose Jedrick Wills in this game and Wyatt Teller with knee injuries,
yeah,
but still 8 sacks is way too much. They also lost
they
backup tackle
sucked in
James
week one and week
Hudson.
two though
Yeah, they
too.
sucked
Like
as
they
well.
were
Yeah.
not good. Yeah,
Overall, they have to be better there. They can't run the ball. You can't expect Sean Watson, like you said, to do everything. Um, and then in the defensive side, I was dumbfounded when I saw what was going on. Like Um, Mal Malik Neighbors he has been phenomenal so far. I just saw an Adam Schefter stat saying he's the first player in NFL history with at least 20 receptions and 3 touchdowns in his first 3 career games. He just 2 touchdowns in this one, 78 yards. He's the
Marv.
youngest wide receiver in NFL history with 2 touchdowns as
Oh,
well.
Marv must not have 20 catches
No.
because I know he's got 3 touchdowns. I'm
hmm
pretty sure he's got three.
Yeah, in that first half, Daniel Jones 17 for 19. He completed 12 in a row at one point. Finishes 24 for 34 with 236 total yards. Devin Singletary does a solid job on the ground again, gets about 4 yards a carry. Same with Tyrone Tracy. So they're able to run the ball decent against this Browns defense. Obviously, we're able to pass the ball to the Browns on the Browns defense with Daniel Jones. And on top of that, to start the game off, they fumbled the opening kickoff and gave the Browns the
Yeah,
ball in the red zone.
right,
So
yeah.
that's how the Browns get the lead early, and the Giants were still able to recover. I saw that happen. I had it on
That's
one of
what
my
I'm
four
yeah.
boxes, and I just immediately took it. I was like, oh, the Giants are going to giant this game. Don't need to watch it.
Yeah, I saw it on Red Zone and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Browns won." Like
Yeah,
immediately. And then I'm like, "What the fuck? He's 17 for 19?"
it, the
That's
NFL
almost
is just
unbelievable.
the NFL is such a strange league.
It
If
is,
Daniel
man.
Jones can continue this, I mean, who knows? I don't think that's going to happen, but you never know. Maybe he just got caught fire for a game, or maybe Brian Dable. I mean, he hasn't been playing much. Maybe he just needed time to get back in an NFL rhythm. He hasn't played in a year. Who knows?
He was bad last season before the injury
I
too.
know. I know.
He's
Um,
been bad since that game in Minnesota. This is his best game since then.
yeah. Oh yeah. Miles Garrett also got hurt. He's getting an MRI in his foot tomorrow, so hopefully he's not out anytime for the Browns because the way they're playing right now, they absolutely need Miles Garrett because they need that defense to. I don't even know, man. I don't even know.
Yeah, it's hard to even judge that one at all.
The
Maybe it's just a fluke for them, but they need to get Nick Chubb back. They need to figure out their O-line issues, and if that doesn't happen, then they're not going to be good enough offensively to have a chance. It's just that's just the truth.
I think that's another team, the Browns, that I'm 0-3 on because I think last week I took the Jags to get them and they beat the Jags,
Yep.
and this week I take Browns against the New York Giants.
You took the Cowboys week one though, didn't you?
You're right. Yeah.
I
Okay.
took
So
I'm
I'm
0
one
and
and
3
two.
on
I forgot. I was
them.
trying to
I'm
think.
0 and
You're
3.
0-3. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, shocker. But moving on here, I think this is a team that I think I'm 2-1 on maybe. I don't know. Steelers moved to 3-0, beat the Chargers 20-10. Fields' best game as a Steeler, 245 and a touchdown on 25 for 32. He completed like his first 11 passes in this game. He looked really, really good. It's hilarious. We were talking before we recorded how Caleb Williams and the Bears offense has struggled early on, and Justin Fields and Darnell Mooney have looked pretty solid on their respective new teams in the Steelers and the Falcons. Steelers defense was impressive as expected. They're going to continue to be impressive every week. Chargers, their identity in the first 2 weeks, and their identity will be run the damn ball down the other team's throat. You're just not able to do that against a team like the Steelers. The Steelers were in a position to succeed before Herbert got hurt in this one as Rashi Rice goes in for a
Need that.
touchdown. Ooh,
Needed
flag,
that.
flag though.
Oh no,
I
I
don't know what the
need
flag's
that.
for.
Ugh.
But yeah, Steelers were in a position to win this one before Herbert got hurt, but regardless, that of course did not help them. The Chargers play a mistake-free game in the turnover department, but just could not move the ball well enough to win this one against the Steelers. I said it last week. Any team without a dominant offense is really going to struggle versus Pittsburgh. They are just such a sound unit defensively, and I'm really impressed. I mean, they're gonna. I can call it today. They're finishing 9-8 at least. Like there's no chance they don't finish 9-8 now. They start 3-0 against a Falcons team who they maybe shouldn't have beat, and then two teams who they probably should have beat in the Steelers and the Broncos, or the Chargers and the Broncos. But let me see who the Steelers got coming up. Because if Fields can get comfortable and play solid like he did today, they could be in a good spot. They're in Indy next week, and then Dallas, Vegas, Jets, Giants, Washington. There's some winnable games there. I mean, Dallas is maybe tough, maybe not tough. Jets maybe tough, maybe not tough. You got some options there if you're the Steelers, and I think they could realistically start like 5-2, 6-2, 6-3, something like that. I think they're going to get off to a good start. I'm liking what I'm seeing. I'm rooting for Justin Fields at this point. He's getting more and more comfortable in this offense. You see Calvin Austin go for 95 yards today. Pickens, Freiermuth, all those dudes had 4 more catches. Najee had 5. He's spreading the ball around. He's looking more comfortable than he looked in Chicago with a better O-line here in Pittsburgh. And they're just, if they can figure out how to run the ball between the tackles, this could be a damn good football team. If they can figure that out with Najee, we've been saying that for a few years. So we'll see what we get from that. But I'm impressed with Field so far, and they start 3-0.
They match up great with the Colts next week. The Steelers do, but in this game, I didn't know going into this game that the Justin Herbert ankle injury was that big of a deal. He gets taken out of this game in the third quarter, I think, after he gets hit. Taylor Heineke comes in and was unable to finish the job. Herbert was doing solid before he got hurt. He was 12 for 18, 125 yards, and he had a touchdown to guess who? Quentin Johnston, who
Yep.
is kind of
3 in
He's
2
figured
games
it
now
out a
for
little
him.
bit. Yeah,
Yeah, he is.
he's been pretty good so far this
This
season,
would
just
this would
catching the ball.
be the way the season has started in the NFL. Of course, Quentin Johnson has 3
Yeah,
touchdowns. Of course.
exactly. And J.K. Dobbins, he wasn't great in
Yeah,
this one, but he's
JK.
been
Yeah,
good
yeah, yeah.
most of the
And he
season.
looked good actually. Like the Steelers defense was just good. He looked fresh. Like he was breaking tackles. The Steelers just have you break one tackle, they have 6 dudes waiting for you. So there's nothing you can really do. But
Steelers defense phenomenal. T.J. Watt gets a sack. He's continues to be great, contending for Depoy. Nate Herbig has 2 sacks and 2 tackles for loss. He was phenomenal. The Steelers defense all around has been getting to the ball. Patrick Queen's been good for him. And it's a Mike Tomlin team. They're going to find ways to win games. They have 5 sacks in this one. They limit the Chargers to only 168 total yards. And in the second half, the Chargers only have they have -5 yards and 0 points. That's impressive. And offensively, Fields continues to get it done. They're 3-0 for the first time since 2020. I think it might be time to almost commit to Justin Fields. Maybe you send Russell Wilson to Miami for maybe a draft pick or something. I don't know, but Justin Fields gets the job done and he looked good. That touchdown to Calvin Austin was nice. He had a throw to Pat Frymuth that was phenomenal. Frymuth just couldn't hold on to it. Frymuth has a solid game though, so they get 114 yards on the ground, and the Steelers team they play Steelers football and continue to
he's
win.
not even running it that much. It's
I
crazy.
know.
It's
Only
actually
6 yards
wild to see
rushing.
him not run the ball. Like it just makes it more and more funny, like how the Bears were using him. And they did the exact same shit for like 2 years, and they're like, why isn't it working? And then the Steelers go and do something else, and all of a sudden they're 3-0. But
Yeah.
who would have thought? Bears fans will. I mean, they're back to blaming fucking. I don't know why I can't even think of his fucking name.
Eberflus?
Yeah, I mean he's so irrelevant I couldn't even think of his name. But yeah, they're back to blaming him, of course, because why wouldn't they? How long before they blame Caleb? You think they got to probably wait a year, right?
At least a year, yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
next year
it took like
next
2 to
year
get
they'll
Fields.
have a new coaching staff, so
Yeah, yeah, they already penciled that one in.
yeah.
They refuse to blame. They will refuse to blame Caleb, and they're not going to blame Poles. They're iffy on. They don't want to blame him, but some of them are because they want to keep the King Poles thing going on as long as they
Yeah,
can.
I saw a former member of this pod say on Twitter, when Hard Knocks was going on, talking about how we know Ryan Poles is one of the best GMs in football. I want to know where that comes from
Yeah,
because
me too.
outside of the Panthers trade, which was just ridiculous by
That
Tepper to
wasn't
sign
him.
off
I
him.
refuse to give him the credit for
Yeah,
that. I
I blame that on
refuse.
the Panthers.
Yeah. I
If
mean,
it
that
wasn't
was
for the Panthers, the Bears would still they would unfortunately be the poverty of the NFL. I think if
they
it
would
wasn't
be
for the
worse. They'd be
Panthers.
way, way worse. They'd be so bad. Imagine this team with no DJ Moore, no Caleb Williams. They still have Fields. They still have a dog shit O line. They still
And
can't run the
DJ
ball.
Moore, man, he just doesn't look happy right now at all. In that game, they would pan to him, and he just didn't look in it at all,
How
especially late in the
pissed was he
game.
looking at Fields' stat line after the game?
Yeah,
Like this motherfucker has 250 passing yards now.
him and Kenny Moore they hit each other, and they both kind of got banged up. And he just went to the sideline, took his helmet off, and sat down. He just looked, I don't know. And I was didn't look like he wanted to get back in the game at all. So I don't know what's going on there, but I'm
Yeah,
assuming that got to be
it's
something in
tough.
practice as well. But Caleb and Odunze seem to be best friends right now. So
I mean, if you would have told me that the Bears offense would be this bad through 3 weeks and the Vikings would be 3-0 with
oh my God,
34 points as
that's what I mean.
we move on here into the Vikings Texans game. This is the third baffling game for me. After the Browns game and after whatever the fuck the Buccaneers game. 34-7 victory for the Vikings over the Texans. The Vikings may be a, a really good team. I don't know. I honestly don't know at this point. Stroud throws
Brian
two
Flores, man.
uncharacteristic picks here. One was a bad read by him. The first one was a bad read. The second one, I think it might have just been a miscommunication with Nico Collins. I don't know if I'd completely put that one on him, but 2 picks from Stroud is kind of unbelievable. The Vikings defense has just been outstanding to start the year, despite losing Danielle Hunter to the Texans. They look great. Their pass rush is great. Brian Flores has been phenomenal. He got blackballed by the NFL. He doesn't care. He's still one of the better coaches, one of the better coordinators in the league. Sam Darnold throws for 4 touchdowns, no picks. Just unbelievable. What is his stat line to start the year overall? 8
Gotta be.
touchdowns, 2 picks, 657 yards.
Is he an MVP candidate right now? Is Sam Darnold an MVP
I
candidate?
guess so. I mean, yeah, I guess he is. Yeah, probably. Him and
Sam
Andy Dalton,
Darnold,
him and Andy Dalton and
Malik
Saquon.
Willis.
Yeah, We'll get to those guys later. But Sam Darnold, he doesn't even throw for 200 yards in this game. He throws for 180 yards, but 4 touchdowns. Aaron Jones was able to really dominate the Texans on the ground. It's everything that the Bears couldn't do last week against the Texans defense is everything the Vikings did this week. But yeah, the Texans don't score a point in this game until their seventh drive of the game, which is just absurd against an offense that's as good as the Texans. The Vikings offense just wasn't even, they weren't even amazing today. They just took advantage of the good spots that they were in, and Darnold just made no mistakes. Of course, like I said, 4 touchdowns, no picks. If Flores and the Vikings defense can continue to be this good, the Vikings can just be, they're going to be a solid team regardless. They have weapons on the outside. Their O line is solid. Their defense was probably, their defense and quarterback were probably their two biggest weaknesses on paper, player wise going into the season. Their defense still doesn't look crazy on paper, but Brian Flores has been able to do so much good that they look like one of the best units in the league. Sam Darnold has been serviceable, and if everything is good around him, he's fine. The Vikings might just be a solid team. I mean, they beat the Niners, they beat the Texans. I mean, the Giants, whatever, but Texans and Niners are two great wins, and just keep adding to the confusion.
Yeah, I picked the Texans to obviously, I think, cover in this one, but I think it might be time to, if, especially if the Vikings are underdogs, but if they're at home and playing an opponent that hasn't seen Brian Flores' defense, I think you got to almost pick the Vikings no matter what at this point because the US Bank Stadium was rocking, multiple false start penalties, illegal formations on the Texans. They couldn't hear what was going on. CJ Stroud couldn't understand their Brian Flores defense at all. 2 interceptions from him is something you really don't expect to see at all. A 25 QB rating. They did have the 1 touchdown. Stephon Diggs leads them in catching, 10 catches for 94 yards. But all game, this Texans offense just looked out of it. Davis Mills has to come in and toss the pigskin a little bit. They were missing Joe Mixon and Damian Pierce, their top two running guys. They didn't have any run game in this one, but offensively, the Vikings just gave it to them. Well, I mean, defensively too as well. Jonathan Grenard was phenomenal. He had 3 sacks against his former team, the Texans. Outperformed Danielle Hunter. The Vikings got rid of Danielle Hunter, bring in Jonathan Grenard, and so far, Jonathan Grenard might be better throughout in the season so far. This defense has been phenomenal, and Sam Darnold, 4 touchdowns, no picks. You said it. Aaron Jones was phenomenal in this game. He has over 100 yards rushing on this Texans defense that has been good against the run. He has 46 yards in the pass game as well. Jalen Naylor gets another touchdown. He has 3 straight games with a touchdown, kind of as the wide receiver too, with no Jordan Addison. Great guy. I love Jalen Naylor. And then Justin Jefferson, he's gonna do what he does. He has a touchdown, and I think it's like it's multiple games in a row with a touchdown for him. He's the best receiver in football right now. Vikings are now 6-0 all time versus the Texans. They look great. They have by far the best resume in football right now with the win against the Texans and the 49ers. But they're a team you don't want to play right now. And I, you have to say Sam Darnold's playing. He might be the MVP right now. I feel like you almost have
It's a
to say
little
it.
early to. It's a little early to
I'm
be
talking about
calling it,
like
but
I'm not calling. I'm saying like right now through week 3. I think if they did a poll, I think he'd have to win MVP.
yeah, probably. I'm trying to think of who else
I
would be
mean,
up
Derek
there.
Carr going into the week probably had it, but
Yeah, or Stroud even maybe one of those
yeah.
two going in there. I'm trying to think of who else it would be. I think it would have to probably be him.
I mean,
Daniel
TJ
Jones,
Watt,
if we're
maybe
going
TJ
off just
Watt.
week 3.
Yeah, yeah. A week 3
um,
MVP. TJ
he-
Watt, if
yeah,
he
he's been great. He hasn't really had the yards. Like I said, he's just been. I mean, 8 touchdowns, 2 picks is pretty solid for Sam Darnold. But moving on here too, I mean,
wow.
arguably maybe the LVP in in Will Levis of the season so far as they are 0-3. The Titans losing to Malik Willis and the Packers 30-14. Malik Willis and the Packers really were comfortable and in the lead for most of this game. They were early. He looked way more comfortable this week today than he did last week against the Colts. He puts up almost 300 all-purpose yards. He doesn't turn the ball over. Levis just gets completely used and abused all game. 8 sacks for 56 yards, which is just wild. Titans had absolutely no run game in this one, but they also really didn't even try to. Levis throws it 34 times. They were down this entire game. They had no run game, like I said. Both teams scored touchdowns out of the gate, but then the Packers just got a pick six at some point in the second quarter, and it was kind of over after that. It just felt like there was nothing that the Titans were going to be able to do. Once again, Matt LaFleur great job without Jordan Love. They're probably going to get Love back next week, but just a great game plan going in here. Malik Willis only has to throw the ball 19 times, and he completes 13 of those. He also leads the team in rushing with 73 yards. I saw a tweet that Packers quarterbacks or like a quarterback just puts on a Packers jersey and they just learn all the secrets of how to play football. It just happens. Like
Yeah.
I don't understand how it happens. Malik Willis looked genuinely good in this game, which is just crazy. But Packers are 2-1 now. They have a 0 win percentage with Jordan Love and a 100% win percentage without him so far this year. And the Titans are officially establishing themselves as one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah, they are 0-3. Each week, Will Levis has a play where it just kind of loses them the game. Throws a pick six in this one, has 2 interceptions total. He makes some great throws, but he has just 8 turnovers through 3 games. You cannot have that and expect to win. He has just dumbfounded turnovers as well. It's ones that you see and you know that you can't do that. He does it anyway. They don't have a run game for him to kind of lean on. Tony Pollard only has 14 carries, 33 total yards rushing the ball for them. But overall, the Packers just somehow are able to do it at the quarterback position. You said it. I don't know how they do it. There has to be something. I wish I could find the graphic, but they showed his stats with the Titans. It was like 0 for or 3 games, had like 180 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 picks. He goes to the Packers. He's 2-0, has like double the passing yards per game, no turnovers, 2 touchdowns per game. It's phenomenal. Defensively, the Packers have been great as well. 7 interceptions through 3 games. They brought in a new defensive coordinator from Boston College, Jeff Hafley. He's been great. This defense has been good. They had 8 sacks as well, like you said. And offensively, they're with Malik Willis, they're running the ball 37 times. They passed 19 times. We thought maybe Jordan Love was play. It's great that they didn't let him play. But with Malik Willis playing as well, maybe Jordan Love's just a system quarterback. Who knows? Um, but the Packers 2-1. Matt LaFleur is a phenomenal head coach, and he needs to continue to be in that coach of the year conversation.
Yeah, it's so fucking annoying that they're good with Malik Willis. That just pisses me off. I mean, I know the Titans are dog shit, but still.
Yeah, great on
Um,
the ground though.
and
188 rushing yards on the ground.
and this Titans performance just even more states how bad that almost loss week 1 was for the Bears.
Yeah,
This Titans team is
I mean,
horrible. Like I want them to be able to be
I thought they
sneaky,
would. Yeah,
and I thought they were going to be able to too, but I don't know, man. Are we ever gonna have a game where Will Levis doesn't make like multiple really, really bad mistakes? I don't know.
and they were favorites going into the game, 2.5 points,
I know, and
and
that's
we
why I
both.
felt like we need to take him because it seems like a trap because Titans are dog shit. But I guess Malik Willis figured out how to play football. Nothing you can do about that. How are we supposed to predict that?
They hang in there
That's
with
what I'm
the
saying.
Jets. They hang in there with the Bears. You think maybe they're good? The Packers pound them.
Yeah. I mean that this is the shit you just can't predict. Like what how are we supposed to be like, look at what they did in week 1 and week 2 and be like, oh yeah, they're
And
gonna
it's a
get
home game.
shit on by Malik Willis at home. Yeah. Like how are you supposed to predict that? But moving on here to Eagles 15, Saints 12 in New Orleans. The Eagles going to the Superdome and get a win here. Much needed win for them. Saquon was phenomenal for Philly. 147 and 2 touchdowns. He is a beast and he's in a great system now. And I'm so happy to see him be able to work with a good O line. The Giants had him trapped for so many years and now he's fully flourishing. And it's great to see. The Saints were careful with the ball for most of this game. They didn't really turn it over outside of the end. They just had to punt a lot. They couldn't move it a ton, and that really cost them. The Eagles were shooting themselves in the foot with turnovers all game, but luckily for them, they didn't blow this one. This game, the Eagles if you watch this game, the Eagles were easily the better team in this one, and they did almost lose it, and they probably should have lost it late if it were not for a 60-yard pass where Goddard takes it damn near all the way to the end zone at the end. They probably lose this game, even though they played better for most of it. They almost double up the Saints on total yards in this one. It shows how important holding onto the ball and making good fourth down decisions are. Sirianni almost blew this one, although his team played so well because him and Jalen Hurts, I should say, because Hurts wasn't able to take care of the ball a ton, even though Hurts had a little bit of a better game. The fourth down decisions hurt them, hurt Sirianni, but regardless, the Eagles were able to do enough to overcome their bad coaching, and I hope Sirianni gets woken up after this one because they probably should have lost it despite playing so much better. But you go and you see another thing like, how are we supposed to predict the Eagles secondary now being good?
Yeah.
How are they good now? Like I don't get it, man. It's frustrating. That's what the NFL is, though. And these first few weeks are always so hard. Carson Steele family watch party right now. They're showing on
Yeah.
Sunday Night Football.
Oh,
But
from his sister's wedding. Oh, wow.
oh wow,
Congratulations.
yeah, I guess.
That's got to be pretty close to you.
What?
That's got to be pretty close to you.
Close to me?
Yeah.
Why is that?
He's from around there on that. Well, I think he's closer to Indy, but
Oh, he's from Indiana. I didn't know that.
yeah. He went to Ball
Oh,
State. Ball State
oh,
legend.
right. Yeah, right. I forgot about that. Yeah. So maybe it is over here. But back to the Eagles Saints game. Uh, the Eagles played much better for this entire game, and they still almost found a way to lose, but they come back and Saints. They almost stole a win at home in a game they probably shouldn't have won, but I don't feel any different about the Saints. I still think the Saints are a good team.
I think they're a good team as well. It was just hard to predict that they'd get shut down with how great their passing game had looked. Derek Carr only has 142 yards on a touchdown and a pick. Alvin Kamara is solid on the ground, 87 yards, but he did have 26 carries. Eagles, Saquon Barkley all game was breaking off big runs, averaged 8.6 yards per carry. That was phenomenal. Has 2 touchdowns. Dallas Goedert with no AJ Brown and Devontae Smith gets hurt with a concussion, which hopefully he's all right. That was a very hard hit. Hopefully he's okay, but Dallas Goedert 170 yards and 10 touchdowns. Phenomenal performance from the tight end position. We don't see that as often as we used to. Eagles come back after they had the lead late, get a nice win. They had 2 turnovers that were bad, but they're able to recover. Jalen Hurts, 311 passing yards. That's good. Saints, they had, I think, no murders for 18 days in New Orleans. This might be a bad night for that, so you got to be careful out there if you are in New Orleans.
Where'd you get that stat from?
That's a real stat.
You just knew that off the top of your
That's
head.
a real stat. It's a real stat. I
How
swear,
did you
look it
just
up.
know that?
Because I've seen it. It's been all over like Twitter and stuff. They hadn't had a
Really?
murder. It was like they broke the record for amount of murders, and ironically, it's when the Saints get good.
Wow, that is crazy.
So
Could you imagine? I hope it doesn't break tonight, but Jesus.
I think, yeah, probably already happened. But
Jesus.
I'd love to see that happen in Chicago. That'd be really cool.
For there not to be murders.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, for there not to be. The Bears could go 35-0. I don't know if that would happen.
Uh-oh.
But their current state is not helping.
Yeah, it's not helping. Saints got outgained 460 to 219, and they stayed in the game. That's a good sign. Their secondary did all right, but Eagles finally find ways to win a close game that they maybe shouldn't have won. They didn't do that last week. They do that this week. So without their top 2 weapons, they were able to, or their top 2 receiving weapons, they were able to get it done. And good win. They needed that one.
Okay, moving on here to the 4 o'clock slate with the Panthers getting their first win against the Raiders in Las Vegas. 36, yes, you heard that right. 36-22. Like I said in the preview here, Dalton came in with no tape and played great. He's the only quarterback this year with 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in a single game. Carolina was, see, the part for me, I'm not shocked by the Dalton thing because, like I said, he came in with no tape. He's a veteran quarterback. I'm not shocked he played well. I don't think the Raiders have a great secondary. I am blown away that they were all of a sudden able to run the ball. That doesn't make any fucking sense at all. Like they were just all of a sudden able to run the ball. The Raiders had no run defense. The Raiders go from winning in Baltimore last week to losing to Andy Dalton and the Panthers at home this week. Just doesn't make any sense. The Raiders couldn't move the ball for most of this game. The Panthers defense was great. All of a sudden, I guess maybe they hated Bryce Young. They all of a sudden wanted to start playing good. AOC came in late in this game, and he actually kind of looked solid. I think we could see more from him in the future. Gardner Minshew hasn't looked horrible this year, but AOC, he had a solid end of the year last year. He looked good at the end of this game. I think there's a chance he gets some run. The Raiders' lack of a run game really is just hurting them offensively right now. They got a win last week in Baltimore, but we know the Ravens are known for blowing leads. But regardless, they need to figure out how to get a solid run game and help out their pair of mediocre quarterbacks. But like I said, this just adds to the confusion right now. It's hard for me to comprehend the Raiders as they are in. There's a group of probably like 15 teams right now, which is half the league damn near, that I just have no idea where they stand. The Raiders are one of them. I still feel like I know the Panthers are ass, but regardless, like the Panthers will get humbled quick. Who do they got? Who do they got coming up here? Cincinnati, Chicago. Oh man, if
Chicago
if
flew
if
my
they beat the Bears, if they beat the Bears, Chicago, Atlanta, Washington. Actually, they got a few winning winnable games coming up, honestly, but um, I'm sure this will not last when more tape comes out on Andy Dalton. At least current tape, obviously, all time we have a ton of tape on him, but they come out here and pull another shocker. But at this point in the day, I was already after that 1 o'clock slate. I was like, okay, anything can happen now. So this one wasn't as shocking then, but still, my God.
Yeah, once I saw the 1 o'clock state, I was kind of wishing I could just reverse all of the picks that I had to the other side, and probably would have been great if I was able to do that. But my thought process going in this game was that the Panthers, I still don't think I'll be able to score the ball that well, but defensively, I didn't think that they'd be able to stop the Raiders' offense, and that was just not the case. The Raiders only 22 points. Raiders are unable to. If there's a team that can run the football worse than the Panthers, though, it is the Raiders. The Raiders have absolutely no run game. They averaged 49 rushing yards going into this game. They only get 55 in this one. You have to figure that out. You have to be able to run the football. And I thought the Bears couldn't run the football, but after watching this Raiders team, that was an embarrassing performance. They need to find something to get some sort of run game. They're getting booed off the field. Minshew has to be better. I mean, you when you don't have a run game, they know what you're doing at that point, and it's kind of just expected. But for the Panthers defense to play that well, and for their offense to just go out there and absolutely tear up Antonio Pierce's defense, that did shock me. Um, Andy Dalton, 3 touchdowns, like you said, only quarterback 300 touchdowns, 3 picks, 12 yards and 3 touchdowns in the first half alone. The Red Rifle, he looked like the Red Rifle in his prime, and Chuba Hubbard getting 100 plus yards. Just Yeah, no idea. Deontay Johnson, 8 catches, 122 yards. I'm in an 8-man league, and after watching the Panthers offense and I had so many receivers, I was like, oh, you know what? I'll just give it to Deontay. What does he do? Goes off.
Yeah,
Um,
it's probably
who
still there
knows?
though.
I mean, it depends where I am on the order at this point.
Yeah,
But I mean,
yeah, that's a brutal one.
the Panthers get a win, and I mean, that's the other thing. Putting in Andy Dalton, it's a short-term solution. You're not going to make the playoffs. It's not going to help you in the future, but you might win more games now. And do you really want to do that? Do you want to take yourself away from potentially the first overall pick? Who
Well, that
knows?
maybe they want to move that second round pick for that the Bears still have
Oh
back.
yeah, they want to move that back. Yeah,
Yeah, they want to
I
make
hadn't
sure the
thought of
Bears don't
that.
get too spoiled with those picks.
Yeah, they don't want to lose the trade any more than they already
Yeah,
have.
yeah, they're willing to sacrifice their own pick to make that pick worse. But moving on here to Seahawks defeating the Dolphins 24-3 in the Dolphins' first game without Tua. The Seahawks got on the board early in this one, and Miami just kind of had no shot after that. Skylar Thompson wasn't horrible, but he did get hurt, and Tim Boyle came in this one. I thought Miami would be able to really lean on their run game and their defense in this time without Tua, but that just was not the case here. Their defense got a lot better in the second half, but they struggled early, and that was just really damaging for them. They had no run game at all in this one, essentially. I think Miami just has to figure out something else at quarterback for now because this was just a really bad performance. And I don't know where their next move here is. Maybe they go Huntley. Maybe, like you said, they go try to trade for somebody, maybe a Russell Wilson. But they're going to need something at quarterback. I don't think this is going to be uh this isn't going to be, I think, what we see from them this entire time without Tua. I think this is kind of an outlier. Their defense, like I said, played a lot better in the second half. They were uncharacteristically bad in the first half. Their next two games, they got Titans and
Tennessee.
Patriots. They're going to win those two games most likely. And they're going to be able to run the ball. It's rare that you're going to have them have a game where their defense is bad and they can't run the ball. So I think they're going to be fine. For the Seahawks, though, honestly, the Seahawks have not looked really good in any of their games, but they're sitting at 3-0. It's pretty remarkable. They have a huge Monday Night Football game next week in Detroit. They played pretty good against the Lions for the past few years now, but the Lions played pretty good against the Bucs for the past few years, and we saw what they did last week. So that should be a very interesting game. The Seahawks will have a chance to move to 4-0 if they can get that big win in Detroit, and that will definitely prove to me that they are a good team. But you can only play who you play. They got wins over the Broncos, the Patriots, and a Tua-less Dolphins are their three wins. And I wouldn't say they looked particularly dominant in any of those games, but You take wins wherever you can get them in this league, and they're sitting at 3-0.
Yeah, you play who you play. They're winning games. They seem to have a pretty good start to this now. Um, I don't know why they went into the offseason and didn't decide to get in a backup for Tua. You're gonna have to talk Tua and try to get him back at some at some point in the season.
Just
Um,
trying to throw that in there. You're gonna
I
force that in there by any means
I was
possible.
forcing that in there. Um, whenever you see Tim Boyle run out from the sideline and come in the game, you know that that team is going to lose the game, and
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
that's what the Dolphins had to do in this one. Even Skylar Thompson, I don't have any confidence in him going out there. They did sign Tyler Huntley, so maybe he's ready for next week, or maybe the extended future until Tua comes back. But overall, I just this offense is going to be so down regardless. Only 140 passing yards. They know you can't really pass the ball. You got to get the ball out quickly to Tyreek Hill, to Jalen Waddle. They weren't able to do that in this one. Devon Achane was slowed down as well, only 30 yards on 11 carries. So they're going to have to figure out something on offense until they can get back to the Seahawks 3-0. You have the wins you need. Mike McDonald has this defense playing good. They're doing what they have to do. It looks much improved from last year with no Kenneth Walker. Zach Charbonnet steps up, has 2 touchdowns. He looked great. DK Metcalf gets a 75-yard touchdown. Exactly what they needed. Geno Smith does throw 2 picks, but overall, he was in command of the offense. He looked good. And Seahawks sitting at 3-0, and then, like you said, they got the Lions, but then they get a matchup with the Giants. Kind of a game they got to win. They seem to go back and forth with hard games, easy games all year, but they're in a tough division. I think they're gonna fight for a playoff spot. So you got to keep winning games like this, and you can see yourself in the playoffs. But for the Dolphins, the quarterback situation is just not where you want to be right now, and it should have been something that was fixed in the offseason, but they decided not to, I guess.
Charbonnet looked fucking dog shit against New England last week too. He looks
Yeah,
horrible.
he looked
And he
horrible.
comes out here against Miami, looks great. I don't
5 yards
get
a carry, yeah.
Yeah. But moving on here, another team with a lot of injuries, but this one got the win. The Rams beat the 49ers 27-24. 49ers are now 1-2. So are the Rams. They get their first win. Very random game here, but like I said in the preview, this is classic McVay and classic Stafford. These two are going to continue to win games they shouldn't win. They've been in this league for a minute. They've been at the top of their game for a minute, and they know what they're doing. The 49ers outgained the Rams in just about every stat in this one. They lose the turnover battle 1-0, and you see how that can really just change a game here. The 49ers offense was pretty great. Purdy threw for just under 300 yards, 3 touchdowns in this one. He was solid. It simply just came down to who played better late in this one, and that was the Rams. The Rams' last 4 drives go touchdown. Oh, didn't mean to write. Touchdown, field goal to end the game. The 49ers had a key pass interference late in this one that cost them. They had 7 penalties for 111 yards in this one. This is a tough loss for the Niners, but they played solid. It's a division game. It doesn't worry me that much. Do we know if Trent Williams came back?
I don't know.
I know he got hurt in this one. I don't remember if he came back, but he is part of that group of Debo and CMC where we saw when those three were not together last year that the Niners were in trouble. They lose this game. Both teams beat up, but just a really gutsy win for McVay and Stafford. They came back late in this one. I'm not worried about the Niners, but I'm happy for the Rams because a win like this keeps your season alive, and they're a talented enough team. They just have so many guys hurt that just keep the season alive for now, and you'll be able to probably survive. And when you have McVay and Stafford, they're going to be able to get you those wins. Next week they have at Bears, which that's a winnable game, as we know. Then they have versus Packers. That's going to be a tough one. They probably lose that one. Then they have the Raiders. They can win that one easily. And then you're looking at late October. It's like, okay, maybe some of these guys like Puka and Cup and all of our old linemen can come back now, and then you're looking at a better spot. But this was a very, very impressive win, in my opinion, from the Rams, and one that I think is going to set them up for put them in a good position going forward.
Very impressive win from the Rams. The Niners had this game won. They were up 10. They were up 7 with Jake Booty having a field goal attempt to make it up 10, and he misses it. Niners just kind of blew this game. This game is really just an injury off, both teams suffering all of their top weapons with injuries. For the 49ers, obviously they still have Ayuk. He was okay, but Jawan Jennings was phenomenal. He looked like the wide receiver one over Ayuk pretty easily. He had 11 catches, 175 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Ayuk only 5 for 48. Jennings was phenomenal. I thought Purdy looked pretty good out there. He had a lot of time in the pocket. He was moving around, but he was making the throws he was had to make. He had 3 touchdowns and no picks, almost 300 yards. Had 10 carries for 41 as well. But for the Rams, just a Matt Stafford game where you look down and out, and he comes back from out of the game to steal a victory from the other team. Kyron Williams was phenomenal in this one. Had a front flip touchdown. That was pretty cool to see. Had 3 touchdowns overall, 89 yards on the ground, 27 yards in the air. But what a win for Sean McVay, who's had his struggles with Kyle Shanahan. He gets the win here with none of his top 2 wide receiver weapons and missing his top tight end. So very good win for the Rams. They need to continue to just kind of tread water until they can get Kupp, Higbee, and Nakua back. So rough start for the 49ers this year being 1-2, but like the Rams, you're just so beat up. You need to get some of your guys back from injury. And Trent Williams did come back. He was just dealing with cramps.
Okay, that's good. Because that would have been a tough injury for them. But moving on here to our second to last game, the Lions get a win in Arizona, 20-13 over the Cardinals. Lions get a much needed win here. Their defense was just phenomenal once again. This defense is going to be a strength of the team. It's a strength of the team at this very moment, and it needs to continue to be up front. They're getting pressure often. They're not giving up really any rush yards. The Cardinals had no chance to run the ball in this one at all. Neither did the Rams week 1, neither did the Bucs week 2. So that's going to continue to be a standard that they had last season. Their secondary significantly better in this game. They were so much better than they were, or sorry, I should say they're so much better this season than they were last year. They've looked great in these first 3 games. What is I don't have it off the top of my head. What is the exact point total they've given up this year? It's not a lot. They gave up 13. I gave up 13 this week, 20 last week, 20 the week before. So, I mean, 53 points in 3 weeks is pretty solid for your defense. One of the better scoring defenses in football. Cardinals just had no run game virtually at all. Kyler had to throw it in a double coverage for much of this game, and nothing was easy at all. The tough cloud here for the Lions is they did have a ton of injuries in this game. They leave Arizona down to Lee McNeil, Brian Branch, Sam Laporta, Derek Barnes. Anzalone didn't play in this one because he had a concussion. So they are having a lot of injuries, especially on the defensive end. That may be a problem for them going forward. Rookie cornerback Terrion Arnold had a rough start to this game. He's had a lot of penalties early on in his career, but after the first quarter, he really recovered nicely, and he had a ton of reps against Marvin Harrison Jr., and he looked really, really good in this one. Marvin Harrison still goes for 5 for 64 and a touchdown, but only 64 yards when you have a rookie. I mean, rookie on rookie there with Arnold and Marvin Harrison. I'm happy with what Arnold did, especially after the first quarter in this one. Lions dominated time of possession, ran almost 70 plays in this game, so they had the ball for much of it. They were much better in the red zone this week, 2 for 2. They started great offensively, but then, I mean, they scored 3 touchdowns in the first half. Looked really good offensively. They were running the ball fine. They had that sick trick play from from Goff to Amon-Ra to Gibbs, where he just ran out of the gate. Whenever Gibbs or JMO gets the ball in space, they're just so fast. And they look great in the first half, but so many stall drives in the second half really hurt them. The offense just cannot get shut out like this in the second half. That was really tough. Cardinals have a good run defense. They didn't really show it in the first half, but in the second half, they were able to get their run defense together, and the Lions were not able to really skate down the field all game like they wanted to. The Lions get a lead, and they want to just lean on you all game, and teams that don't have great run defenses, they can do that too. But the Bucs and the Cardinals are teams that it's hard to do that too, and we saw that be a problem over the past couple of weeks for them. But Monty, however, was also pretty good on the ground, especially early on in this one. In that first half, he was great. He went for 100 in this one. Goff was much better, although he did throw 1 pick. He went 18 for 23 overall, 2 touchdowns and a pick. I come out of this game so impressed with the Lions defense. I'm waiting on the offense to hit its rhythm, and I think the offense will hit its rhythm soon. And if this defense can play at this level all year and the offense figures out how to get back to where it needs to be, the Lions may be the best team in football, but we'll see. We need the offense to improve.
Yeah, Kyler Murray wasn't phenomenal in this one. Lions defense looked better than they maybe have all season. Kyler, 207 yards, touchdown and a pick. He was their leading rusher. The Cardinals didn't really have a run game. Good for the Lions to show that their run defense kind of steps up. Marvin Harrison Jr. was solid, 5 catches for 64 yards, but the Lions defense really was pretty good in this game. The secondary looked solid. Offensively, Jared Goff completes his first 14 passes. He was efficient, 18 for 23 overall. 2 touchdowns and a pick, almost 200 yards. He was solid, but the run game for the Lions continues. I mean, there's not really a team that the Lions aren't going to be able to run on. Montgomery, 23 carries, Gibbs, 16 carries. They're going to feed their two guys the ball and 4.6 yards per carry to 5.2. They're phenomenal. Got to continue doing that. Amon-Ra's another solid game, 7 catches for 75 yards. Laporta, 2 for 36. He does get hurt. I think they said it was a high ankle or it's an ankle sprain,
Yeah,
which
he
is
came. He
never
went out.
good.
He came back in, and then he went out again. And
I heard he got carted off, which
he
that
got carted off, but it was the end of the first half, so I think they just didn't want him walking into the locker room because he came back.
okay.
He came back in the second half and played for a little bit, and then went out again. So
Oh, okay. So that's good then.
and
But
got
that's not
or
good,
not.
but it's better.
Campbell did say ankle sprain for him, so
Yeah.
we'll
So
see.
hopefully he's not
Brock Wright
out
was great in this
or
one in his
not out for
absence.
too long. Yeah, Brock Wright, 4 catches, 34 yards. Solid. Not as much JMO in this one, only a catch for 9 yards and had a bad play where he has -7 rushing yards. But for the Lions, you get the win. You're back to 2-1. You have a stretch here where you should be able to win some games now. Seahawks, the Cowboys haven't looked great. And then you got the Vikings, which, I mean, at first we thought that might be a kind of easy game, but they have looked very good. So we'll have to see with that one. But good win for the Lions. You're playing against a Cardinals team that is looks solid so far to start the year.
And I do want to say about the Cardinals, I didn't really talk about them much because I was talking about the Lions so much, but I do think the Cardinals are going to be a good team. I think the Cardinals can be a playoff team. I really do.
I
I
do as
saw
well.
it today. I mean, their defense is just good. Like it's good in the secondary. They're good up front. Kyler, I think against a lot of teams is going to be really good. The Lions just in the secondary just straight up clamped them today. Like there's not much he could have done. But even with that, he was still getting around, making plays, putting himself in a position where if anybody got open, he would be able to get them the ball. But regardless, I think he's going to that offense is going to be able to torch a lot of defenses. But
And again, no run game. That's been a
yeah,
if you can run the
that's a
ball,
problem. Yeah,
that's it's been the key to winning.
yeah. For every it truly it just is for every team, and that perfectly segues us in here to the final game. Ravens Cowboys. Ravens win this one 28-25. A lot closer on the scoreboard than it really was as Dallas outscores them 19-0 in the fourth quarter. But this was a very boring game for a long time. But the Cowboys made a late push to stay in it. Absolutely dominant performance on the ground for Henry and Lamar. They were fantastic in this one. Lamar goes for 87 on 14 carries. Derrick Henry goes for 151 and 2 tutties on 25 carries. He was phenomenal. Lamar only has to throw it 15 times in this game, completes 12 of those. Cowboys' run defense just has looked horrible early on in the season. It has to improve. They cannot continue to get destroyed on the ground by other teams and then have absolutely no run game from them. They just cannot do that. It's going to continue to lead to them losing games, and they're sitting at 1-2 and 0-2 at home. After last year where they win like their first 8 games at home or something, and now they're
Well,
0-2 at home.
they'd won like 13 or 14 straight at home,
Yeah, it was something
like with the
crazy.
season before as well. And now they've
Yeah,
lost their last 3.
I know it's wild, and they are not looking great right now. Dak and the Cowboys offense finished with good stats, but they were playing comeback all game, and that's almost exclusively this fourth quarter. As we see, what a wild
He
play
got hit.
there.
Oh my God. He got hit on the toss, but
Jesus. Regardless, up until the fourth quarter, Dallas's offense was legitimately just horrible in this game. Like, there's no way around it. I know that you see Dak finish with 400 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. They looked horrible in from the first 3 quarters of this game. I am genuinely worried about the Cowboys on both sides of the ball. I am struggling to look at how this Cowboys team, and not based off their roster, not based off what they did last year. If I'm looking at based off what they've done in the first 3 games of this year, I don't know what I would say is their strength right now. Because you would think it would be passing offense. They haven't been great passing really all year so far. You would think it would be pass rush. They were great against Cleveland, who we know O-line has completely fallen off. They sucked last week and they sucked this week against the Ravens. Lamar never gets sacked in this one. I am genuinely worried about the Cowboys. We know they can't run the ball. We know they can't stop the run. So what are they doing well right now? Their pass defense has been okay, I guess, but it was horrible last week. So it's hard for me to find a strength right now. I feel like I'm kind of a broken record because this is how I felt last year about the Cowboys at this point. But we'll see. I think I was probably more confident in them then than I am now, though, because their defense was at least playing well early on in the year last year. Their offense just wasn't playing well. Now they're struggling on both sides. I am not moved by this late comeback for Dallas at all. They played like shit for 80% of this game, and I just cannot overlook that. But for the Ravens, this is a much needed win. They do have a serious lead blowing problem. They've had that for a couple of years now. We saw it a lot last year. We've seen it already this year against the Ravens and then almost in this one. They have to figure out how to stop blowing leads, but this is a win they had to have to not go 0-3 to start the year. They're at 1-2, and I have a lot more confidence in the Ravens 1-2 than I do in the Cowboys 1-2 at this point.
I completely agree. And for the first time in I genuinely don't know how long, I got to see an onside kick get recovered. The
Yeah.
Ravens didn't recover the onside kick. It went right through Zay Flowers. Cowboys recover, and that's the reason why this game looks a lot closer than it was. But overall, Cowboys, if I had to pick a strength for the team, I think it would be the pass rush. But kind of
They've
like
had
how
one
it
sack
was.
in 2 weeks
I know, but I'm
against
saying
two
kind of
battling
how it was
lines.
with the Colts, how their pass rush might be their strength on defense. The fact that you can just run all over them completely negates the pass rush because teams will
Yeah.
just run the ball over them, and then you got to play for the run way more, and you're not going to get the pass rush at that point. Ravens run for 274 yards on the Cowboys here, just not good at all. The Cowboys got to just. A lot of defenders say that stopping the run is kind of just a mindset. The Cowboys going to have to find that mindset, and then offensively I've talked about in a lot of these games. I talked about in the last one with the Lions how being able to run the ball can win you games. The Cowboys, like what team was I talking about earlier? The Raiders can't run the ball at all. Rico Dowdle's their leading ball carrier. He only gets 32 yards. Zeke 3 for 6. Deuce Vaughn 2 for 5. That's not good at all. That's not going to win you games basically ever when you have to pass the ball 51 times and you only get 51 yards. You have the same amount of pass attempts as you do rushing yards. That's just not a key to winning. Cowboys get Jake Ferguson back. He has a solid game. CD wasn't very good in this one. Had a drop or two, only 4 catches for 67 yards. For the Ravens, did what you had to do. Nice win. Lamar continues to own the NFC. 12 for 15, gets 182 yards passing, 96 QB rating. Derrick Henry gets 150 yards on the ground. They did what they had to do. Lamar owns the NFC, and you can run them. This is the perfect game for the Ravens if you can play a team that's going to run that you can run on, and that's the Cowboys. Uh, I'm definitely was way higher on the Cowboys last year than I am right now. So
I mean, how were they able to just get moved at the line by this
yeah,
Baltimore offensive line that I don't think is that great?
I think they're good. I just don't think that 274 yards good.
Yeah, it's wild. But moving on here to our studs and duds for the week. For my stud, I have to do it. Give me Daniel Jones, good old
Oh wow,
Danny Dimes. He looked great today, especially in the first half. I have to give him his flowers. This may be the only time I'll ever be able to do
I
this,
can't.
and I have to do it. Give me Daniel Jones as my stud.
For my stud, give me Sam Darnold.
Yeah, come
4 touchdowns, no picks. The Vikings offense was phenomenal. Who would have thought that in week 3 of the NFL season, my studs would be Sam Darnold and Daniel
And
Jones?
what's crazy is there's a clear three too.
Yeah, who's that?
Andy Dalton.
Oh yeah, Andy Dalton.
He's
Yeah,
a clear third. Just
wow.
wild. Those are the three best players from this week.
What has
But
happened to the quarterback position, man?
yeah, it's wild. It's absolutely wild. And for my duds, I just have every Cowboy not named Brandon Aubrey. Because all of them have completely sucked dick, and he's been maybe the best player at his position. Did he kick the onside kick? I don't remember.
Yeah,
So I mean, he's already one of the best, if not the best kicker in the league. He gave them a chance at that onside kick. Every other player and staff member on this team let him down. So I got every Cowboy not named Brandon Aubrey.
For my dud, there's a couple like just teams I want to go with, like the Buccaneers. There's a lot of teams I want to go with. The Buccaneers, um, the Texans, Will Levis. I don't know how Will Levis hasn't got one yet. He needs to get a dud at some point during the season before he gets benched if that happens. But I'm gonna have to go with the Raiders because you're playing the worst team in football, a team that has looked terrible, like the worst organization in almost all of the top sports in recent years, and you just got absolutely dog walked by them. Embarrassing performance. So I'll go with the entire Raiders team as a dud for
Yeah,
this one.
there's a lot of teams that deserve duds
Browns.
for sure. Browns, Bucks. Yeah. I mean Cowboys is basically what I picked, but
Yeah.
yes, that will about do it for this episode of the Engage 8 pod. We will be back on Wednesday to recap Sunday night football and the two Monday night games from this week, the entire past week of college football, and preview week 4 of the NFL season. So stay tuned for that on Wednesday. Until then, hit like and subscribe on the video. You can hit the links in our description for Spotify, TikTok, our socials, and all that good stuff. and we'll see everybody in the next one.